For all the people who judge without knowing, just throw the peace sign, tell them good vibes only, yeah. They were hating, but we didn't even notice, cause we're on them good vibes only, yeah. The shit gets wavy, like we're in the ocean, cause we're on them good vibes only, yeah. For all the people who judge but don't know me, I just throw the peace sign, tell them good vibes only.
Have you struggled with depression or anxiety? And if so, how do you get through it? I do not suffer from anxiety, but I very much struggle with depression. I do. And I think that the biggest part of getting through struggling with depression is acknowledging that it's a thing. Um, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm just tired," or "Oh, I'm just this thing. It's this thing that I'm angry about." But depression is real, and you can't control it. Sometimes, I mean, medication exists, and some people use medication. I haven't found a medication that works for me. I've done therapy, um, but mostly the biggest way that I deal with it is I talk to people. I talk to friends and family. I say, hey, either I'm going through a down, I call it a downswing. I'll say, hey, I'm going through a downswing right now. I just need you to be there for me. Or I'll say, hey, I need you to distract me. Give me some good news. But it's it comes in waves. It comes in ebbs and flows. Sometimes it hits harder than others, and it's something that a lot of people deal with. And the struggle with suicidal contemplation is bad. I've never had the urge to do it, but it's crossed my mind. I'm sure um, anyone who suffers from depression bad would tell you. But I convince myself, or I acknowledge for myself that it's not me, it's the depression. It's not life isn't too hard. Life is still worth living. It's just that I'm in a bad place. I'm going through a downswing. I don't actually want to kill myself. I just don't like how I'm feeling right now. The world isn't a dark place. It just looks that way right now. Uh, I remind myself that I am still loved. I remind myself that there are still things to look forward to. And I remind myself that there are still things that I do enjoy doing. I just don't enjoy them right now. And that this will pass. No matter how long it lasts, I remind myself that it will pass. This depression isn't easy. Um, and I urge anyone who does suffer from depression or anxiety to reach out to speak to a professional, because they help. They do. They help you gain that perspective for yourself. They help you realize the things that you forget. And they help you find ways to cope. My main coping method is that I distract myself. Eventually, I pull myself out with some sort of distraction, whether I'm cleaning or I just say, you know what, I'm going to play this video game and I'm going to enjoy it. And then I start playing it. It's drudges on for a little while, and it's hard to get into, but eventually I get myself into it. Or I do the same thing with a TV show. I'll just start watching a TV show, and eventually I'll forget that I'm sad. I don't urge people to sit on the couch when they're and by themselves when they're down like that, but it's worked for me. Uh, and eventually, the down, like, if there's a downswing, there's an upswing. You come out of it. That's why I call it a downswing. Eventually, I come out of it. Um, it's not a forever thing, and that's how I get through it. I get through it knowing that it's not forever. It's just how I'm feeling at that moment or those days.
You make it through the military without some kind of depression or anxiety. It's a very stressful job, and they don't do a good job teaching you how to deal with it. So that's why we largely self-medicate. And anyone who says they don't is a liar. Yeah, there was a little bit of time where I really just wanted to drive my car off the cliff, off of the mountains, and just call it a day. And whatever happened, happened. It was a really dark time in my life. Thankfully, I had some really great sergeants who made sure I went to William Beaumont and checked myself in. And I thank their lives every day. Even though I don't talk to them anymore, I still thank them. I hope they know how much of an impact that they made for me. Because I seriously don't think I would be here without them.
Have I struggled with depression or anxiety? If so, how did I get through it? I didn't really struggle with either of those. Probably just like confidence issues, but I've always been pretty assertive about what I want and what I want to do, despite the obstacles. I don't feel nervous in crowds or anything like that, or feel paralyzed by fear or trapped in my head too much. So it does happen, but not to the point where it's paralytic. So I don't know if I can really express that, but well, I guess one thing that does help me in those moments, I was watching this show called Lost, and I forget the guy's name. It's like Jack, Find Jack, yeah. And he's a doctor who had survived the plane crash, and as he is making his way to shore, he sees just the wreckage and the chaos and everyone that's crying in pain, and people are looking for their spouses and trying to gather what's going on in the midst of this chaos. And he allowed himself, and he says this in the show, he allowed himself 10 seconds to feel everything that he was going to feel, and then he took action. And that's kind of the approach that I take with life.
So I have pretty much always struggled with depression and anxiety since I would say middle school, high school. And then it kind of just got worse the older I got. When I was in high school, I remember I would get like super sweaty. I would get like the sweaty pits, the sweaty hands. I was just always so nervous. And then I went to college, and that was just kind of like a shock for me. And then the army and just everything. I haven't always dealt with my depression and anxiety in the best way. I used to have issues. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I used to, because I would say I've gotten better with it, and I take my medication regularly now, but I used to have issues with self-harm. I used to not see an issue with it either. I was fine with it. I just was like, I'm not hurting anybody else. This is my way to deal with it. This makes me feel better and snaps me out of it. And for years, that was my excuse, and I was okay with it. But I know that's not the right answer, and that's not if a friend of mine or somebody I just met were to tell me, you know, they had issues with self-harm. I would want to help them. I would want to do anything I could, get them the help they needed, just sit and listen to them, talk to them, and just kind of help them through that. Because I know how painful it can be just to hide that secret and not feel like you are comfortable talking about it with anyone, being embarrassed and ashamed because whatever the reason, or just even like to go swimming or, you know, wear shorts, and It definitely changes it changes other things than just how, I don't know, it just changes your life. Like, you are hiding, I guess it is kind of like an addiction. Like, you're hiding that from people, you're not letting them in. And the first person I ever really talked about it with was my friend Lauren. Actually, she's probably the only person I've really talked about it with. And I have gotten a lot better, and I've been working on it. I've been working on just my mental health and being happier, and ways I can help other people, and just trying to be a better person overall. Um, but yeah, so I have always just struggled with depression. I do take Wellbutrin to help me with it. I've also, at night before bed, I do smoke weed to help me just relax and be able to sleep through the night. I used to take more medication, but I'm just down to one, so the weed has definitely helped. I know it's not everyone's answer and not everybody approves of it, but it helps me, and it is what it is.
I probably the most confident was, I'd probably say 23, 24. In the middle of doing all those NIEs. It was like my third or fourth one in. I'm like, I know this stuff. I was like hot shit out there on the command floor. Like, I knew stuff like the back of my hand. I wouldn't say I knew everything, because I mean, it was just E3, E4, fucking Phillips. But I was very comfortable with it, and so with that came confidence. And the fact that I was briefing, the commander and the S2, and just the comments that I was creating were being read by all the other battalion commanders at their nightly meetings, and just by working on those assessments, by virtue of working with the analysis that everyone in the back was doing, but then they would feed out the analysis, and then I would come up with the comments of like the bottom line up front, like, this is everything that's happened, but you need to know when X, Y, and Z in the next 24, 48 hours. And then I would generate those comments, and then the S2 would make their tweaks. But it was kind of a confidence boost when they didn't have to make as many tweaks, because they're like, oh yeah, he obviously gets it too. So I'm just changing your grammar because you don't write so well.
At what age have you felt the most confident? I don't know. I guess now. I think as we get older, we gain more confidence as we gain more awareness of ourselves. No. You know what? No. Most confident, I'd say 25. Like from 23 to 26. I was in better shape. My hairline hadn't receded as much. I shave it all off now. I was good at my job. I was newly promoted. I was active. I was out every week. I was doing capoeira. I was rock climbing. I was playing soccer. I was always out. I had a lot of friends that I hung out with. I would go drinking on occasion. I think outside of the times when you overdrink and you get hungover, which that's why I don't like drinking a lot as much anymore. But yeah, I think back then I was financially secure. I was healthier. I was more active. So yeah, 23, 25. But at the same time, now I know more about the world. Now I have less concern with what people think about me. I think outward confidence, 23, 25, but like confidence in my existence now and every day after now, I will have been more confident because I know more about myself. I know more about the world around me. I'm more content with my position in the world. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think about, though.
At what age was I the most confident? Right? Megan friggin' now, dude. Like, it took a long while to get this way. Um, I suffer from a crippling disease called ugly duckling syndrome. It's when you're super young and you're constantly reminded about how ugly you are. And then in your early 20s or around that time, next thing you know, you're fine as shit. And everyone wants to hook up with you. And old ladies are pinching your cheeks. And children don't want to hug their moms anymore. They're reaching out for you. And all of this positive stuff. And you refuse to accept it because all you know is that you're ugly as shit. So that's kind of what I went through. And very recently was I just like, I got to accept that sexy now. Yeah.